in the sweltering heat of a small, impoverished village nestled between rolling hills and endless fields of wilted corn, where the sun beat down mercilessly on cracked earth and the air hummed with the distant buzz of cicadas. Young Elias trudged along the dusty path to school, his bare feet kicking up tiny clouds of red dirt that clung to his threadbare shorts and faded shirt like unwelcome friends, his stomach growling in protest against the meager breakfast of stale bread his mother had scraped together from the remnants of last week's rations, a breakfast that was more air than substance. But Elias never complained because he knew his mother worked her fingers to the bone in the fields from dawn until dusk just to keep a roof over their heads, a roof that leaked during the rainy season and not in the cold winds of winter. Yet it was home, the only home he had ever known, and in his 8-year-old heart, he carried a quiet resilience that belied his tender age. A resilience born from watching his father abandon them years ago for the lure of city lights that promised riches but delivered only heartache, leaving Elias to become the little man of the house, helping with chores and sharing whatever scraps they had with his younger siblings who looked up to him with wide, trusting eyes that mirrored his own deep brown ones, filled with a mix of innocence and premature wisdom. And on this particular day, as he clutched his small tin lunchbox, a dented relic passed down from his grandfather containing nothing more than a single boiled potato and a handful of wild berries he had foraged the evening before, Elias spotted her for the first time, sitting alone under the gnarled acacia tree that shaded the schoolyard's edge. Her name was Leela, a new girl in class with tangled hair the color of midnight and clothes even more ragged than his own. Her face buried in her knees as silent sobs shook her slight frame, and something in Elias stirred, a pull he couldn't ignore, perhaps because he recognized the hollow look in her eyes, the same look he saw in the mirror on mornings when hunger gnawed at him like a relentless beast, or maybe it was the way she sat apart from the other children who laughed and played without a care, their lunchboxes overflowing with sandwiches and fruits that made Elias's mouth water just thinking about them. But whatever the reason, he approached her cautiously, his lunchbox swinging at his side, and when she looked up with tear-streaked cheeks and weary eyes, he offered a shy smile that crinkled the corners of his mouth, saying in a voice soft as the breeze rustling the leaves above, "Hey, you look like you could use this more than me," and without waiting for a response, he opened his tin and placed the potato and berries in her lap, watching as her eyes widened in disbelief, her small hands trembling as she touched the food as if it were a treasure from a fairy tale, and in that moment, a bond formed, unspoken but profound, as Leela whispered a thank you that carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid words, and from that day forward, Elias made it his quiet mission to share whatever he had with her, even if it meant going hungry himself, because in Leela he saw a reflection of his own struggles. Her family having moved to the village after losing their farm to a devastating flood that swept away everything they owned, leaving them in a shack even smaller than Elias's, with a father who drank away his sorrows and a mother too ill to work, and as the weeks turned into months, their friendship blossomed like a rare flower in the barren soil. They sat together during recess, sharing stories of dreams that seemed impossibly far away. Elias wanting to become a teacher to help kids like them learn and escape the cycle of poverty, Leela dreaming of owning a big house with enough food for every Inia, and they laughed at silly jokes, chased butterflies in the fields after school, and found solace in each other's company amid the harsh realities that surrounded them. But life in the village was unforgiving, and soon challenges mounted, like the time Elias's mother fell ill with a fever that wouldn't break, forcing him to skip school to tend to her and his siblings, scavenging for herbs in the woods and boiling water over a makeshift fire, all while worrying about Leela, who faced her own trials at home, her father's temper flaring more often as debts piled up. And one fateful afternoon when Elias returned to school after his mother's recovery, he found Leela with the bruise on her arm, her eyes downcast as she explained it was from falling down. But Elias knew better, his young heart aching with the fury he didn't fully understand, vowing silently to protect her however he could, even if it meant sneaking extra food from his own scarce supplies or standing up to the bullies who teased her for her worn-out shoes. And as the seasons changed, their bond deepened, through shared secrets whispered under the stars on warm nights when they sneaked out to the riverbank to skip stones and talk about the future, Elias teaching Leela how to read better using old newspapers he found discarded in the market, and Leela showing him how to weave baskets from reeds to sell for a few coins, their laughter echoing in the quiet evenings that offered a brief respite from the grind. But tragedy struck when Leela's mother passed away one stormy night, the village doctor unable to save her without medicine they couldn't afford, and Leela's world shattered, her father spiraling further into despair, deciding abruptly to move them to the city in search of work, tearing Leela away from the only friend she had. And on the day she left, Elias stood at the edge of the village road, his eyes stinging with unshed tears as he handed her a small carved wooden bird he had made from a branch, saying, "This is to remember me by, and one day we'll meet again, I promise." And Leela hugged him tightly, her voice breaking as she replied, "You gave me more than lunch, Eliasa, you gave me hope." And as the rickety bus carried her away in a cloud of dust, Elias felt a piece of his heart go with her, the village suddenly feeling emptier, colder, and in the years that followed, he threw himself into his studies, working odd jobs to help his family, dreaming of the day he might escape the poverty that chained him. But life had other plans, with droughts ruining crops and forcing his family deeper into debt. Elias dropping out of school at 14 to work full-time in the fields, his dreams fading like the setting sun. Yet he never forgot Leela, wondering where she was, if she was okay, if she still thought of that poor boy who gave her his lunch, and little did he know that far away in the bustling city, Leela was fighting her own battles, her father's drinking worsening until he abandoned her too, leaving her to fend for herself in the unforgiving streets, where she slept in alleys and begged for scraps. But the kindness Elias had shown her ignited a fire within, a determination to rise above her circumstances, and she clawed her way up, finding work as a cleaner in a small office, saving every penny to enroll in night school, her mind sharp and her will unbreakable, graduating with honors and landing a job in a growing company, where her talent for innovation shone through, leading her to climb the corporate ladder with relentless drive, starting her own business in technology that revolutionized affordable education tools for underprivileged kids, amassing wealth and influence she once thought impossible, all while carrying the memory of Elias like a talisman, searching for him in quiet moments, vowing that if she ever found him, she would repay the debt of kindness that had saved her life. And as fate would have it, their paths were destined to cross again, but not before more trials tested their spirits, with Elias facing his own hardships, his mother passing away from overwork, leaving him to care for his siblings alone, taking on multiple jobs as a laborer, mechanic, and tutor on the side, his body weary but his heart steadfast, never losing the compassion that defined him, helping neighbors in need even when he had little to give. And in the city, Leela's empire grew, her company going public and making her a millionaire, featured in magazines as a self-made success story. But amid the glamour, she felt a void, a longing for the simplicity of that schoolyard friendship. And one day, while browsing old village records for a charity project, she stumbled upon Elias's name, her heart racing as she hired investigators to track him down, discovering he still lived in the village, struggling but unbroken, and with a plan forming in her mind, she set out to change his world forever, the stage set for a reunion that would echo the purity of their childhood bond. As the first rays of dawn pierced the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold over the now slightly modernized village where electricity had finally arrived and flickering bulbs and paved roads replaced some of the dirt paths, Elias rose from his creaky bed in the modest hut he had rebuilt with his own hands after a fire claimed the old one years ago, his muscles aching from yesterday's labor at the construction site where he hauled bricks under the relentless sun for wages that barely covered the bills. But he pushed through as always, brewing a weak cup of tea on the wood stove before waking his younger siblings who had grown into teenagers with dreams of their own, dreams he encouraged even as he sacrificed his own to keep them in school, reminding them daily of the importance of education with stories from his past, including vague tales of a girl he once knew who inspired him to believe in better days. And on this ordinary morning that would soon turn extraordinary, Elias donned his worn work shirt, kissed his sister's forehead, and stepped out into the crisp air, unaware that miles away in the gleaming skyscrapers of the city, Leela paced her luxurious penthouse office, her designer suit a far cry from the rags of her youth, her team buzzing around her as she finalized the details of her grand gesture, a gesture born from gratitude that had simmered for over 20 years, and as her private jet touched down on a makeshift airstrip near the village, heads turned in awe at the sight of such opulence invading their quiet world, whispers spreading like wildfire about the famous businesswoman who had roots there, and Leela, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement, climbed into a chauffeured car that wound through the familiar paths, memories flooding back of dusty feet and shared lunches, tears pricking her eyes as she neared Elias's home, stepping out with poise but feeling like that scared little girl again, knocking on the door that creaked open to reveal Elias, his face lined with the etchings of hard years but his eyes still kind and familiar, widening in shock as recognition dawned. "Leela, is it really you?" he stammered, pulling her into an embrace that bridged the chasm of time, both of them laughing through tears as words tumbled out, recounting the paths their lives had taken, Leela sharing how his simple act of giving her his lunch had been the spark that kept her going through the darkest nights on the streets, how it taught her the power of kindness and fueled her ambition to create a world where no child went hungry or uneducated, and Elias, humbled and overwhelmed, spoke of his own struggles, the losses and small victories, never imagining that the girl he helped would return as a savior, and as they sat on the porch sipping tea, Leela unveiled her plan, revealing that she had established a foundation in his name, funding scholarships for village children, building a new school equipped with computers and libraries, and most astonishingly, offering Elias a position in her company as a director of community outreach, complete with a salary that would lift his family out of poverty forever, along with a new home stocked with everything they needed. But that wasn't all as she handed him the deed to a vast plot of land he could farm or develop as he wished, and shares in her company that would ensure financial security for generations, her voice trembling as she said, "You gave me your lunch when I had nothing, Elias. Now, let me give you the world." And in that moment, Elias's world expanded beyond the confines of the village, his siblings emerging wide-eyed at the news, the neighbors gathering in celebration as word spread, turning the day into a festival of joy with music and shared meals that echoed the simplicity of their childhood. But beneath the surface, emotions ran deep, Elias grappling with the magnitude of it all, feeling unworthy yet profoundly grateful, reflecting on how one small act had rippled outward like a stone in a pond, changing not just two lives but an entire community. And as the sun set on that transformative day, Leela and Elias walked the old schoolyard path, stopping under the acacia tree where it all began. The wooden bird she had kept all these years now returned to him as a symbol of their enduring bond, promising to stay connected, to collaborate on projects that would uplift others, their story becoming a legend whispered among the villagers, inspiring acts of kindness and a chain reaction of goodwill. And years later, as Elias stood at the helm of the foundation, watching children thrive in the school he helped design, he often thought back to that lunchbox moment, realizing that true wealth wasn't in the money or land Leela gave him, but in the friendship that had weathered time, the emotional riches of knowing he had made a difference. And Leela, in her boardrooms and galas, carried the same truth, her success sweetened by the knowledge that it was rooted in humanity's best qualities, their reunion not just repayment but a testament to the cycle of giving, where what goes around comes around in the most beautiful ways, leaving them both forever changed, their hearts full, their futures bright, a story that proved kindness is the greatest investment one can make, echoing through time as a beacon for all who hear it.